One of the most profound things that helped me on my own journey was to distance myself from the situation by separating the emotions to the actual situation. And when I accepted the situation for what it was, like it just is what it is, it was so much easier for me to process. Welcome to episode 73 of the Positivity Experience, separating emotions from situations. Check it out. Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 73 of the Positivity Experience. It's your girl Lori, and boy am I excited for today's topic because it's something that really helped me on my own healing journey years and years and years ago. And one of the things that led me to get into what I want to do and what I'm doing now, right? But before we get into that, I want to give a huge shout out to the Patreon members. At our gratitude level, and now I'm going to tell you ahead of time, I'm probably going to butcher some names, and I promise it's nothing personal. I just am not great with knowing how to pronounce names. At our gratitude level, we have Desiree Toriano, Melinda Munoz, and we have Nicole Davis. I feel like that one was probably the easier one. And at our abundance level, we have Terry Borgard. We have Asari Ariza. We have Bobby Doge. We have Kim Dodd. We have Sean, and we have Kim Mitchell. Massive thanks to you guys. And what you guys have to look forward to this week is the exact exercise that I used in my own journey and how I differentiated of the situation versus the emotions. So if you're on that, I think it was like a 29-minute podcast. If that's something that you guys are interested in, it is a Patreon. So that is a monthly subscription where I attach a tool, basically a tool or an exercise to help you with this week's podcast. You do not, however, have to do it. It's just there if you want the extra stuff, the extra lesson, and it really helps offset the price of hosting this podcast. So I love you guys and I thank you so much. And if you're interested in that, you can always find that in the show notes. The description of the podcast has a link directly there. So with that being said, I'm excited. Let's jump into this. So number one, before we start, okay, and I feel like I really need to let some people know this because you may want to tune out at some point if this isn't something that you're ready to hear. So in my journey, when I separated situation as it is what it is, not bad nor good, right? Situations are not bad or good. They're just situations. And then the emotional tie is on my end, whether it was self-inflicted or it was inflicted by another person or situation, it's learning to differentiate, to cut the tie between the two. If in fact you are in the part of your journey that if I say it is what it is, based on a situation and that feels triggering or invalidating, this may not be the right podcast episode for you, because I am going to use it is what it is a lot, because that's really what really helped me on my journey of separation. So I don't want you to think I'm negating it or I'm invalidating you. If that is where you are in your journey and you're not quite ready for this one yet, that's perfectly fine. I just want to be 100% transparent because it's not going to be flippant, but it may come off that way if you're not at that space of your healing. So if you're not, please just know I love you. There's so many other episodes that you can listen to. This one may not be for you. So just be mindful going forward with the podcast. Okay, so now that you guys are here, we're going to talk about it. And I will use it is what it is a lot. And I really want to talk to you about this. I did a YouTube on this. If you go over to my YouTube, it was like a 7 or 8 minute little video on it. And everybody in there, because this was a topic that I was going to do later in the summer, but everybody was like, no, we really want to hear this. And I was like, okay. So I listen, you guys talk, I try to hear you. So I really want to go into how it was. And you guys know a lot of my traumas. You don't know a lot of them, but like the main highlighted ones that I use all the time in my teachings, which is molestation, living in a van, dealing with addicts, dealing with alcoholic, dealing with narcissism. So those, right? And for me, and you also know, and I've said this to you before, I lived in that victim mentality, that like a victim to my circumstance mentality, because I didn't have any other tools. Like I had no other tools. It's just, I know how I felt, and every situation that reminded me of another situation triggered me. And, it's kind of like if you're 19 and you go drinking and you drink a lot of vodka, you wake up the next day and you go, oh my God, I'm never having vodka again, right? Because you're like, oh my God, that was terrible. Well, now you just literally took that one situation and now has blamed vodka all the way across the board, where it really wasn't even the vodka's fault. Like it is what it is. It was a situation in time. Yeah, you had a reaction to it, in turn creating some kind of feeling towards it, right? Doesn't make your feelings wrong, by the way. I just want you to understand that the feelings that you're attaching to the situation become clouded. And honestly, as humans, if you don't have the tools, how else are you going to live, right? You have no other choice because that's all you know. You're like, well, this is all I know. Well, of course, this is why I'm telling you. This is why I'm helping you with what really, really catapulted me into my healing phase. And over on Patreon, it's more of a shadow work type thing. So it goes way deep. And so again, if you're going over there, be careful too, because it's going to go super deep. But shadow work itself goes a little bit deeper than even inner child work, because it's going to allow you to go back to that situation, kind of relive it and separate the two, right? But first and foremost, you have to understand that situations are situations. The way that we as humans see things. I'm here in the States. I know so many of you are over the pond. I love you guys so much. And different things happen in different countries. So what we, and it doesn't even have to be country based or culturally based. It could just be you as your own personal beliefs or belief systems that were handed to you, right? And it doesn't have to be a big trauma. It can be a small trauma, right? And you then start to attach an emotion to it because you're told you're not good enough if the dishes weren't done, or if the bed's not made, or anything like that. Okay, so let's use something that's really easy, like bed being made. And I say that because my bed's hardly ever made, if ever. So let's say growing up, you had someone in your life that said, you must do your bed. Your bed has to be made. And let's say it was, I'm going to take it up a notch. Let's say it was really almost militant, like you better hospital corner the bed and it has to be straight. And okay, let's pretend that that's it for a minute. Okay. And so now you have attached, for basically no fault of your own, because it's just been drilled in your head, that you are a slob and you're lazy if your bed is not made. So now you grow up hearing this. You're a slob. You're a slob. Look at that bed. Look at that bed. It's all wrinkled. Oh my God. Look at that. You didn't even iron your sheets. Okay. So now you hear this. So now you grow up. You're an adult now. And you go and you have kids. Now you are like, what are you doing, Billy? What are you doing with your bed? Look at that bed. But the reality is, if that's not something that you wanted to do and you wanted to adopt, the situation of making a bed is not really triggering the situation with your mom or dad who was saying this. It's just a reminder that that situation happened. But every bed on the planet isn't bad because of this situation, or you're not bad because the bed isn't hospital quartered. Okay. So in this case, you have to just look at the bed and that conversation as it is what it is. That's all it is. We attach the emotion to it, right? Usually over repetitiveness or something that's drilled in our head, something that we're told that we're not good enough. That's tethering yourself to the situation. So this was big for me when I was dealing with my PTSD about living in the van when I lived with Kay and Steve. So when Bugsy and I moved in with Kay and Steve, we were living off like $500 a month, right? Through child support. And I was working on getting, I was doing schooling. I was doing, before that, I was doing my own mental healing, right? I was really trying to like get into that mental healing phase, really focusing inward on me. But it reminded me a lot of being in the van, right? When we lived in a van, when Dad and I lived in a van for a short period of time, in like the kidnapper type van. And it immediately, that situation of living with Kay and Steve brought me back to living in the van. So this was before I did the exercise. So every time I had financial, and I have to check myself on this, I still will do this exercise from time to time, not usually about the past. If something like arises, I'm through the past. Literally, my past is what it is. I hold no attachment to that, right? And so, but that was a process over years, by the way. So don't think that this is something that you're just going to, boom, turn around. No, that's not going to happen. But when I started working more into the way deeper energy work and dealing with a lot of Eastern practitioners, I started to realize that my trigger point and my fear, while valid, was also, I don't want to say exaggerated, but it was misplaced, right? So instead of looking at staying with Kay and Steve as, hey, this is a stepping stone, which I mean, in some way, I guess I saw that, but it was more like, oh my God, I don't want to end up back in that van. Oh my God, I don't want to end up back in that van. This was on repeat. This was on repetitive over obsessive thinking. When in this practice, I looked at that as a moment in time. right? So I was 13, let's say 13, 14, something like that. And I go deeper that into the second book. But in that case, we kind of went back to that emotionally, went back to that situation and saw that situation for what it was at that time. So it was like 1987, something like that maybe. And went back to that time, went back there, saw the van, saw the situation, saw the few things of clothes we had, saw that and realized that I'm here now. So I was like, 31, 32. I realized, well, I didn't realize it. It was shown to me that you're here now. So what I'm fearing and what I'm holding to that money, to the fear of not having the money, to the fear of not having a place to live, to the fear of that, right, I was attaching it to that situation because that's all I could attach it to. That's a full-on experience. When, however, I worked on separating the situation, and literally this is where they started talking about it is what it is. They're like, yep, it is what it is. Good, bad, or indifferent situations hold no emotional tie. You and I would hold that to it. And your emotional tie to it might be vastly different than my emotional tie to it. Your emotional tie might be like, great, now you're living on the land because this is something that you loved, because even though you didn't like why you ended up in the van, it gave you autonomy, it gave you freedom, and you just wanted to do that now for the rest of your life. It inspired you. Okay, you and I are in the same van. I'm freaked out because I'm like, oh my God, I never want to do this again. And you're like, oh my God, this is great. I can't wait to go utilize this into my life. We are in the same situation, two different people, but you're going to have a vastly different reaction to it. The situation itself is what it is. The situation itself is not good nor bad. The situation is a situation. Each individual is going to attach that emotional response to that. Now, especially if you're dealing with anxiety and depression and various other things, it becomes harder. That's where the attachment issues come. That's why therapy and learning to process things and CBT and DBT and all these things are valid and they need to happen. You can't just read 2 or 3 self-help books and be like, got it. Like, it's just not going to happen. And it takes time. It takes a healing team. So you need to know that going into it, because very often and for a long period of time, my childhood was my identity, right? Like, I felt bad because other people had parents and my mom had died. I was mad at my mom. I was mad at God. I was mad at everybody. I was mad. I wanted to be adopted. I was mad at the people around me, my friends who had parents and who had these great parents and great dad. And I was angry. I was jealous, which we know comes from hurt. But when I had to look and say, my circumstances, I have 2 choices here. I can maintain that as my identity, and I can attach my emotional suppression maybe, or my non-ability to process emotions to that situation. Sure, that can be where it started. That's great. Let's talk about it in therapy. Let's talk about it in coaching, right? Great. But you can't hold on to that attachment as a situation is bad. Yes, my mom was sick most of my life after 5 or 6. And, she was various levels of sick. Her dying, it is what it is. Her dying is a situation. Her dying is a natural process of life. It's not good. It's not bad. It is a process of life that you are going to experience yourself, right? You are going to, not might, you will. And if you attach the fear to that, now ego comes in, right? If you attach fear to that, now you have a really hard time because you're not living your life because you've attached the fear, the emotion, the anger to this one situation that is what it is, right? I know it gets real deep, and this is all the studies I've done on human behavior and why we do things the way we do. And, so it goes real deep, and it can get really theoretical and prophetic. And so I want to not make it too educational. I really don't, because it can be like, oh my God, what? But I'm trying to give it to you as best as I can without getting too like, boring. But it is one of those things that I want you to understand, that just because you disconnect from the situation, I don't ever want you to forget the situation. Never in a million years. Right? Again, you guys know I could talk about molestation with my dad and order coffee at the same time. It literally, I have no visceral reaction to it because that is what it is. And I processed my emotions on the other side of it. And so that's the whole kind of like last week when we talked about feelings, like processing your feelings, it kind of goes hand in hand with this week's podcast, right? Because if you're not going to process it and then you constantly sit in blame. So now you're attaching. So like for me, I attached being in the van, okay, with my mom dying, my dad's girlfriend who was addicted to drugs, who was like 30 some years younger than him, and his drinking. And, I didn't know it was unmedicated bipolar, but sure, let's throw that in there. Why not? I blamed all of that for my circumstances, when the reality was, it really was what it was. Dad being an alcoholic, he was just an alcoholic. I mean, it is what it is, good nor bad. I was, however, at the other end of that. So I'm not going to ever negate my feelings of not feeling safe and feeling fear and feeling angry and feeling alone. And I'm never going to negate that, but I can't attach my emotions to the situation, because then it would give that whole situation power. It would give mom's death power, and I would have a hard time processing it, because for the rest of my life, I would be like, if mom would have only lived, if mom would have been healthy and lived, my entire life would be that way. That's exactly what happened with my sister. She was absolutely miserable until she passed away. She could not let go of mom's death. She held on to that tight. And because of that, she was miserable. And she's like, I just don't know how you move on. Well, what would you want me to do? I'm not going to sit there and hold on to that. For what reason? It doesn't serve me in any way, shape, or form. And so you have to understand that when you start blaming things, then I blamed God. So that was really difficult. I mean, it did kind of help me find a deeper, higher power in the darkest of times, right? I definitely blamed my dad because he was an easy target. I blamed my friends for having parents. That seems smart. I blamed other people around me for not stepping in to know what was going on. I blamed me for being born to those people. Yeah, I mean, the blame game was endless, all because of the situation that I was in of no choice of my own. But if you hold on to the attachment, right? So this is a process. And when I became unattached, and this is why the Buddhism practice that I do works really well for me, because in Buddhism, you learn, and Buddhism is not a religion, by the way, it's a way of life. And Buddhism itself teaches you that you own nothing, right? You own nothing. Nothing owns you. Well, things can own you, but if when you're in balance, nothing owns you. You own nothing. And things are what they are. They just are. They're not good. They're not bad. They just are. And that was really life-changing for me to get to the acceptance piece of that. And many, 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 many years. So again, not going to happen over one podcast. But this is where you got to check yourself. And this is where you have to be really honest with yourself. Okay? I want you to ask yourself if you're holding on to your emotional attachment to your traumas, right? Just hear me on this. If you're holding on to it based on the fact that that's all you've known for the last 60 years, right? That this has now become part of your identity. You are sad, you are negative. Again, I'm not asking you about your anxiety, depression. We're not talking about disorders, because that's going to be a whole different ballgame that you got to throw in. But it doesn't mean because you have depression, because you have anxiety, that you can't do this. That's completely false. Just means you need a little extra care, a little extra time to process it. Okay. So what I want you to do is really think about that and say, are you afraid to be happy? Are you afraid to let go of this because this is all you've known for 30 years? You literally have attached your emotion and your being and who you are to a situation that literally is what it is. It is a moment in time. I am not 8 years old being molested by my dad. I am 51 years old doing this podcast with you. I am safe. I am not a product of that. That does not define me. It helps me. It absolutely has helped me because I'm able to help you. That's how. So when you start looking at things as not bad nor good, or look at me, or why is this happening, right? You got to be careful of the why is this happening and why me. You got to be careful of that. Very ego driven. Yes, from trauma, but very ego driven. So you have to be careful of that, because you will stay in that mentality of victim of circumstance and then constantly blame everything around you. Now you're afraid to death of everything. You're afraid of everything. You're sad about everything. You don't trust people, all because you've held an attachment to a situation. Your first husband cheats on you, or first wife or first partner cheats on you. So now, just because that happened doesn't mean that everybody in your life is going to screw you over. You've now attached, because you're probably codependent, because healthier relationships, while you will feel hurt, you won't carry that hurt into another relationship when you've processed it adequately. You have to process it. You have to process your betrayal. You have to process how you're feeling. In no way, shape, or form should this ever feel like you're negating your feelings, but that's the key. Did you hear what I said? You are not negating your feelings. Not everybody else. Stop thinking everybody else has to validate your feelings. You have to not rely upon that, because then you're going to be constantly in a depressional state or feeling as though people don't get your side of the story. They don't have to. This is all about you. Your entire life is about you. Your entire process is about you. We are social creatures. We need human interaction. We don't need unhealthy human interaction. And some of those things you just can't avoid. So you're not going to be able to walk on cloud nine. Everything isn't sunshine and rainbows. You're not getting up every day and just hitting that ball out the park that day. You're not. But if you look at that and you say, I failed at this, and I can't believe I didn't journal yesterday, and I can't believe I didn't do these things yesterday, I'm so bad. That was yesterday. That was 24 hours ago. Why are we still there? We're still there. Why are we focused there? What did you learn? What do you need to do differently? What can you take that's positive from it? Don't look at each and every situation and take it as negative. And that's the big thing. When you can separate that a situation is what it is, does not carry bad nor good energy, right? This sounds really silly, but in this country, in America, people, if I've got to burp, I'm a burp, but people will be like, oh my God, they were at this fancy restaurant. Did you hear that person? They were burping. Oh my God, how rude. I don't care. I'm like, good one, But if you go to other countries, when you burp, it is a sign of gratitude of how great the meal was. Okay? Burping, nor good, nor bad. Just burping. It's just a burp. It's just air leaving your stomach. Just a burp. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just a burp. Okay? Now, if you don't align with things, if you're like, oh, I don't really like that. It makes me uncomfortable. I'm embarrassed by it, whatever. You don't have to rock with it. This is being able to let people be who they are without judgment and anger, because it is what it is. If I'm a person who lives in Greece and I burp all the time after every meal and I'm here in the States now, and I burp after every meal because for the last 50 years, this is what I've done. I might be a little bit more cognizant if I'm in a church setting or if I'm somewhere, I might be a little bit more cognizant. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing it, right? And if you go, oh my God, that's rude. That's your opinion. It's not bad. It's not good. It just is. So you have to realize very often, no matter where you're listening to this, you're going to have a certain way of doing things, either in your home, in your country, in your culture. You're going to have a certain way of doing it. When you can look outside of that box, right? I'm not asking you to convert. I'm not asking you to change. I'm not asking you to abandon what you believe in. But when you can look outside of your square and realize that not everybody has to fit in that box to do things the way you would do it, respond how you would do it, then you now have a little bit more compassion for someone else, even if you don't understand it. You don't have to understand it. One of the best things I've ever done is all of the work that I do in different cultures and different countries and different religions has helped me so much. It helped me realize how narrow-minded my upbringing was. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm taking accountability, how narrow-minded it was. And when I realized what did and didn't align with me, I love a little bit of just about every religion, in every culture. I love it. And I love to learn. Even if it's something I don't rock with, it's not good. It's not bad. It just is. It is what it is. So when you allow yourself to learn and drop your freaking ego and stop thinking that this is good, this is bad, this person shouldn't do this person shouldn't have an OnlyFans page. Why? Why not? Because you wouldn't do it? Okay. So it's not bad. It's not good. It just is. So this is a really good space and a good opportunity for you to really reflect on yourself here, right? And ask yourself, are you identifying your traumas as identity to who you are? Number one. Number two, are you identifying your trauma and utilizing that trauma as a reason as to not move forward, or as a, this is just how I am, or I had a bad upbringing, you have to walk on eggshells with me? Is that what you're doing? Yes, it's egotistical. We know this. It can come from trauma. Just because you hear ego doesn't mean that everybody's just intentionally living in their ego. Nobody said that, right? So you got to be careful of the black and white, okay? And you have to remember that not everybody that does things are wrong based on what you know. We are all born with limited beliefs. Every single one of us listening, because we didn't born ourselves. We didn't get born ourselves. Somebody raised us. Good, bad, or indifference, irrelevant. It is what it is, literally. But we didn't necessarily ask to be, well, we did, but we didn't necessarily ask to be here. That's a whole other topic. But, and you're assigned to the people who you're supposed to be to, whether you need to know the reason or not. But you've now given these, like, this is how you're raised. This is how you vote. This is how you worship. This is how you do this. This is how you dress. This is how you keep the house clean. You've now taken that and adopted that as a fact, but it's not a fact. It's a limited belief. Now, if that makes you comfortable, right? This is where you have to say, is this, it's something I really enjoy doing. Then do it. If it makes you happy to make your bed in a hospital corner, by all means, do it. That's beautiful. But you don't get to look at me, who doesn't do that, and maybe might throw the cover up, maybe, and go, oh my God, I can't believe she does that. Well, okay. It is what it is, baby. You don't have to know. I'm not doing it for you, because it's not my identity to worry about how you feel about me not making my bed. So when you can separate situation from emotion, it allows you to process what those emotions are. Okay? Because if you tether yourself to a situation, you can't see past that situation to heal it. You can't process your feelings until you process the situation, but you can't intermingle them. They are going to be intermingled. I'm not going to lie to you, but you have to be able to look at it and not wrap yourself up in just the situation and focusing so much on good and bad and blah, blah, blah. And oh my gosh, it's so a lot. And this allows you to take ownership of your boundaries. That's right. Because if you see that somebody else, even if you want somebody in your life, it could be your sister, and she's just living a way that you don't agree with for you. Not wrong, not she's living a wrong life. She's just not living the way that really inspires you or benefits you on your journey. Valid. Feel that feeling, accept it, own it. That's beautiful. You know this. Do not, however, try to judge her. You have no right to judge her. None. You don't get to judge her. You don't get to ask her the why, because you're never going to like the reason why. And so you have to understand that in that space and time, it's so important for you to be in a place of looking at someone where they are and not judging it. People are like, oh my God, everybody judges people. Until we don't. Sure, because you're raised a certain way. Of course you're going to judge them. You're judging them based on your limited beliefs. I can seriously tell you, I don't judge people. I don't like some things that people do. I'm a big animal lover. I will never understand why people would harm an animal. But if I focus on their why now listen, I donate money. I donate my time in charity for, education on it. But I can't sit there and beat myself up and cry and overthink it and try to figure out the why and this is bad and this is wrong, because now this is going to hold me down. What can I do? I can try to promote what I want to see for the animals. I can't control what these people over here are doing, because those are the people who don't care what I think. Literally. If these people have a one-track mind in doing something, they're going to maintain doing that regardless of how much I preach it to the highest hills. They don't care. I'm not going to talk to those people. I'm going to talk to the people who want to learn more. I say that all the time with all of my content, with the podcast, with all of my socials, with my books, with everything. I'm not doing it to change the world. I'm doing it for people who want to change themselves. In turn, it changes the world. But I'm not egotistical enough to think I'm going to run in on this white horse with a sword drawn and save the world. I'm not. And I'm not going to force anybody to be here. If you don't align with it, beautiful. You already are starting to learn what works for you and what doesn't. That's great. I'm here for it. I give you love and light and wish you well. But I'm here if it changes one person and then that person happens to change another person, not purposefully, just in passing. And down the road, you can't help but change the world. Don't get attached to situations. Don't look at them as good or bad. Look on how you're responding to them and then feel your feelings and process them. And like I said, if it was that easy to do in a 30-minute podcast, I'm pretty sure I'd be wealthiest person on the planet with 64 different islands. It's not a thing. I just want to give you a different viewpoint to look at it. So when you start getting into the why is this happening to me, a little bit of the victim mentality, right, of circumstances, I just want to give you a tool that you can carry with you that just kind of aligns with you to say, hey, listen, let me separate myself from this situation. right? This also really helps you stay in your lane, because instead of worrying about who your best friend's husband is sleeping with because you don't want him to screw over your best friend, first of all, stay in your lane. Second of all, hey, that's a situation. Your situation is to stay in your lane. If your best friend says, hey, now listen, yeah, you got to ask yourself, hey, I saw my best friend's husband cheating. Again, you still may want to stay in your lane, right? You may want to say something, but don't get offended if her reaction is, I don't believe you and you've been trying to tear my marriage apart forever. That's why you got to be careful. You got to know where you align. If people are talking mad smack about somebody to you, distance yourself from that immediately. Hey, you know what? I appreciate this, but I'm not comfortable talking about other people. That's right. You don't get to say, why do they talk about other people? I don't understand why they're talking about. Why are you attaching yourself to their situation? You literally just took a situation of it is what it is and attached yourself to the situation to say, I can't understand it. Don't engage in it. You have control over that. You might not have control over leaving the job right away, but you do have control over who you're going to talk to at lunch. You absolutely do. So I want you to start to separate yourself from the situation as best as you can. What that does is it just gives you a different viewpoint of your emotions, because if you attach your emotions to the situation, it's really hard to process your emotions because you can't get out of the situation. You see what I'm saying? So that's why you want to look at it. Literally on my refrigerator, it says it is what it is. It's going to be a tattoo I'm getting of it is what it is, but it literally is. See, not in a bitchy way, not like, oh, it is what it is. No, it literally is what it is. It's not good nor bad. And it's how, and when you can learn that, when I tell you, you will find more inner peace, you will appreciate people, you will be able to meet them to where they are, you will be able to process a situation without carrying that attachment to it. But it does take daily practice. I'm not going to lie to you. And it takes daily practice and consistency. Your efforts will only be rewarded to the level of your consistency. You must be patient, and you must not do this with the hopes of feeling better. You never do the things with an expectation, which I promise you is on a whole different podcast, because I literally carry no attachment of expectation to anything from anybody. That's what makes me, and not in a negative way, not like, oh my God, you can't trust people. That's not what I mean. I literally carry zero attachment. I have empathy. I have love. I have my feelings. If my feelings get hurt, I look at the situation. I separate myself from the situation. I say, well, it is what it is. What do I want out of this situation? Is it something I can control? Did I say something that was fucked up? Should I say something to this person? Well, let me apologize to this person. If I didn't and they took it some kind of way, I'm not going to apologize just to make them feel better. For what? That's not my responsibility. It is what it is. So it really helps to establish your boundaries, but you first have to distance from the situation. So I hope that helps, guys. I love you guys so much. Please, please, please drop me some words. Follow me over at Instagram on official Lori Wheeler. Jump into my DMs. TikTok is just regular Lori Wheeler. Obviously, this goes directly to the YouTube, where I try to do YouTube's Monday through Friday. That's the Positivity Experience. I love you guys, and I value you guys so much. I just really am here to give you whatever tools that you take. If it aligns with you, I'm here for it. If it doesn't, I'm still here for it, because that means that you're still learning your journey. I love you guys. I appreciate you. And most importantly, I absolutely believe in you.